So, dude, this is the podcast where we talk about Dead by Daylight. I'm the person who hosts this, Knifebird. We got Fleur Duvi.
Hello, hey, what's up? Hey, it's me.
We got Tofu.
Hey, what's up?
We got Yapples.
Oh my goodness, hello.
And we got Ryudi.
Hi, yes.
Hey, yes, we're gonna...
Hi.
Can I make one humble request real quick that you get our names on the right people this time?
Yeah.
Unlike the last podcast.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Would be nice.
Before we do that, I'm just gonna go straight into the first topic, which is Nurse, most controversial killer, I think. She's pretty fucking broken.
That's an opinion.
But that's an opinion.
Yeah,
and
it's just an opinion, dude.
We respect your opinion, even if it's wrong. Nurse, she was first killer that released when the game launched. She was free. Hooray!
She was the first killer. In the beginning, there was only Nurse.
There was only Nurse. They didn't even know why they made pallets and windows and walls. You know, and then they were like, dude, we should have killers that actually get affected by that. Which is the whole problem, because Nurse doesn't care. Her power, she can blink. That's literally all you need to know. She blinks. She holds down M2, she starts charging the thing, and depending on how far she charges, she blinks. That's all she does. Let's discuss the power. Go, I'm gonna adjust the names while you discuss Flare. You go.
Okay, alright, yeah, the Nurse's thing is she moves slower than other killers, but to compensate, her ability is entirely mobility. Her power is its mobility. So what it is you hold mouse 2 to channel your inner powers, and then depending on when you release, you'll travel a set distance from which you can either attack or wait and then receive a stun and then continue on your merry way. So yeah, it doesn't take too long to charge the full blink. You can also blink a second time, or even third, fourth, or fifth time if you use add-ons. So 2 blinks by default. You can blink again after the first blink. And the stun forces her camera to the ground, so you can't see for the duration of the stun. And depending on how many actions you performed after the first blink, your stun will be longer. So if you blink once and then you perform no actions, her stun will be relatively short. I believe it's less than melee weapon cooldown, or very, very close to. And then if you attempt to hit someone after blinking, your stun will be significantly longer. The longest stun being the 2 blinks and then hitting or whiffing a lunge. Okay, so now regarding your power, there's not much to say. She can blink through walls. So she does have the power of mostly negating windows and pallets. They can be used to some effect, but her lunge is currently bugged, so she can hit people on the other side of pallets if she catches you during the pallet drop. So if she starts her lunge after a blink and you've dropped the pallet, if she gets close enough to you during that lunge at any point to hit you, she will hit you. So if she's on your butt for even just a millisecond during that lunge, and then you drop the pallet, and you're on the other side of the pallet, at the end of the lunge, she'll hit you. So that's part of her
That's
thing.
pretty fun. It's pretty balanced.
I mean, you can use you can try to mind game the Nurse on pallets that have already been dropped, but you can just break them and then move on, and you can try to jump in lockers because she can open lockers during her blink, but unless you force her into a huge stun, you're not going to be able to get anywhere after the stun is actually forced. So they're really... I could talk about the Nurse fucking forever. I want to give someone else an opportunity, but that's a rundown of her abilities. Some of the play around it. Take it away.
I mean, yeah, it pretty much sums it up. Really, the whole thing about Nurse is that she just has no counterplay. She blinks right on top of your face, and then you just die. I feel like all the people out there,
just run at her.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people out there who say that Nurse is not. I see people out there saying Myers is better than Nurse, and I feel like the reason why though is there's a huge difference between a good Nurse and then a bad a bad Nurse is probably the easiest thing to ever play against in this game. She's such a weird killer, whereas in the the most skilled nurse is impossible, and there's nothing you can do. Whereas a bad nurse, you literally just looks like a complete idiot, and you can run around like basically freely and never get hit. Like a bad nurse is literally worse than like a wraith, like worse than a bad wraith. It's crazy.
I'm pretty sure after rank reset, just for an example, I got a first time nurse, first game ever nurse, and I think I ran around those tank wheels. You know which one I mean, right? Those little tank wheels. Yeah, I ran around those for around 6 minutes, and she didn't even get a hit on me. It's pretty fucking.
It's. She's the one killer with the power that requires mechanical skill to utilize effectively. Her ability has very little thought involved. Some people say, you have to predict the survivor's movement, and that can be true at times. But for the most part, you can already wreck face with just a good mechanical understanding of her ability. A little bit of muscle memory.
Yeah, I feel like you only really have to predict whenever they like break LOS and you're blinking through LOS. If you have line of sight of them, it's basically just if you're mechanically good with the nurse, you just have a hit, and that's all there is to it.
Mm-hmm. Like, you can even treat it systematically. If they do break line of sight, you blink to the point where they broke line of sight, and then you can use your follow-up blink to hit them, and there's nothing they can really do, depending.
Exactly.
It comes down to range. So a lot of people say the counterplay to nurse is different than other killers. You need to play against her differently than you do the other killers. And that would be cool if it were true, because that would be nice to spice up gameplay, but I genuinely believe it isn't. Back to what I said earlier, blinking to where you last saw them and then using your follow-up blink to hit them, pretty damn effective, but only from certain ranges. So a mistake a lot of people will make is they'll try to blink on targets from a significant distance multiple times. So if I see someone on the other side of the map and I blink towards them twice, I'll charge up my first blink full, and they'll try my second blink, and I'll try to hit them. That's a mistake. I'm already making a mistake. I shouldn't be doing that, because her blinks are gambles until a certain distance, at which point, if you have a good enough mechanical understanding of her ability, you will land hits, and there's no way to avoid them. So what you kind of want to do as a nurse is you want to blink once to close that distance, because her first blink can be charged the longest. It'll cover the most distance, and it has a relatively short stun in comparison to two blinks. So that second blink is going to almost double your stun time, even though it doesn't get you that much closer to your target. So you use the one blink to close distance, and then once you're that close and you see your target, they're pretty much dead. You do your two blinks. If they try to break line of sight, you blink to where you last saw them, and then use your follow-up blink in the lunge to finish them off. So if you play nurse that way, I really think there isn't a lot of counterplay, because she ignores all the mechanics survivors have at their disposal to escape the killer, which is like I mentioned, pallets, windows. You can't use them. She just blinks over them. Lockers doesn't work. And then the argument of just hiding from the nurse, it can work, but after you've been hit that first time, you're pretty much fucked, because she doesn't need a pallet perks in her kit. She has 2 perk slots open that other killers generally don't have open at the higher levels of play. So she can run more tracking perks than any other killer.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with all that. That is like the go-to way that most people. I mean, that's how I play nurse. Like you basically use the first blink to close the gap and get a little bit closer, so your second blink can be like a precise, perfect hit. And I mean, there's really like nothing. There's not a lot. As long as the nurse actually has a good like understanding of how blinks work, there's really not a lot you can do. Like the only time you can actually juke that is if the nurse is not a good nurse.
You don't even need to be a good nurse if you can just equip 3 or 4 blinks. Hell yeah, because then you can just keep correcting your missed blinks, and then you'll eventually hit them.
Yeah, 3
That's
blinks
good
you
design.
can cross-move. 3 blinks you can blink to where you see the survivor, and then blink
then correct yourself, and then correct yourself even
then,
more.
Yeah, that you can use that. Oh god.
She had 3 blinks by default on launch, by the way.
Oh god, I don't even.
And she had normal killer speed, I think. Did she?
Yeah, she had normal.
She had normal killer speed.
She had this thing where, like, during her fatigue time after a blink, you could perform actions. So you could hit someone and then immediately pick them up, or immediately grab them as they vaulted like a pallet, or immediately break the pallets.
I remember that clip of True Talent having a hatch standoff as nurse, like on release, and he I think he blinked, hit, and then they tried jumping and he grabbed them out of the hatch.
Yeah.
Fucking stupid.
7 blink nurse, by the way.
Yeah, those were the fun days, dude. Those were fun.
Was she also the first killer to have the agitation bug? Or the, no, not the agitation
the
bug.
battle?
Yeah,
she
she
was.
was.
Yeah,
She was worse because you could swing without hitting anything and you would go faster and negated wiggle.
Yeah,
you just keep moving.
You could legit just spam swing the entire time you moved. It was wild.
Big oof.
I think it was intentional too because she had like a unique animation for it. When you press mouse 1 while carrying someone, she would repeatedly swing her melee weapon around. Like it looked intentional.
No.
Yeah.
You can tell they didn't put a lot of thought into Nurse. Balance wise. Nay.
I would say they put thought into her, but I mean,
Not balance wise. Like she's pretty fucking busted.
who's putting the thought in, and what kind of thoughts are they putting into her?
Bad thoughts. Thoughts you shouldn't be having. Well then. No. Any closing thoughts on that power discussion? Are we gonna go straight into perks?
I mean, I would just say, just for her power, right? Whenever I'm thinking about Nurse's potential, it's if I ever had a map, like I just had like a clean slate map, you know, nothing on it, just completely wide open. Just the concept of that power is once you master the ability to teleport anywhere, like any location on the map, you're essentially guaranteed a potential hit, and that's essentially why Nurse is overpowered, you know? Like, you can add in debris, you can add in some stuff, but at the end of the day, if you're a master at blinking somewhere, it's always potentially lethal. So, I don't know. That's just, I know that's been reiterated, but that's just how I think about it.
Yeah.
You're not really playing against the survivors because not much of what they do can really matter. You're playing against your ability to use her power.
Basically.
It's golf, dude. Nurse's golf.
Oof.
Yeah, it's really weird. I feel like the way she works is so much different than like it feels like every other killer in the game is like when you're in a chase with a survivor, for instance, you're usually trying to make them slip up and then like capitalize on their mistakes. And it feels like a lot of the time like the survivor is in more control of the chase for the most part. Like you can do things like zone them and stuff to like help you, but you're more trying to like force them into mistakes. Whereas this Nurse, it's like the opposite. Like you're in total control. And like the survivors are instead trying to get you to mess up. Like that's basically how you kind of play a Nurse, is try to get them to mess up, And it's just really weird. It's just completely opposite from how every other killer feels in this game. Like I honestly don't think it would be so bad if every other killer was on that level. Then I mean, killers would just be like OP as fuck in this game. But that it's just weird. It's like completely wildly different from how it feels with every other killer.
Yeah. It's just, can't really say much more to that. She
I wanna argue a few things.
Go for it.
You could always like take that perspective and say, well, maybe all killers should be like Nurse. Maybe instead of playing a reactionary role, they should be the aggressor in a chase. They should have the power of the chase in their hands. Be the one to make the mistake and not wait for survivors to make mistakes. And that's not the worst argument in the world. There's definitely some sense into it.
I agree.
But for matchmaking purposes, I feel like killer
Everyone
always
would be
needs to be
playing
less
killer.
desirable to play than survivor, because otherwise we'll just have a whole fuckload of killers. And
honestly, I feel like the
Yeah.
fact that you can play survivor with your friends makes it automatically way more desirable, like for most people. I feel like
for
even if
sure,
killer
that's
was
definitely a
better,
factor.
Oh yeah.
I also think that if they were to fix the maps in the way that we want them to fix the map, it probably would be more like the killer's in control, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing right now is survivors have a huge room for error. Like, there's the biggest
yeah.
goddamn margin. It's absurd.
They also have like
Until
these.
Bloodlust comes into play, then there's really not much they can do. And
It's also like when you're playing Survivor, you can also just always. It happens to me a lot. I just noticed this when I play Killer against like decently high ranked survivors. Sometimes they'll try to do fancy shit, like I don't know 360s window jukes, and then they get smacked and it doesn't work. And then they just resort to pallet looping because pallet looping works 100% of the time.
No, I mean I wouldn't say 100%, but it's
pretty reliable.
Yeah.
And as a killer, you just kind of have to go along with it. Try to end it as soon as possible. You know, just swinging into the pallet.
I guess the other thing is, what kind of gameplay does that lead to as Survivor? If the killer is always in control, and if you play perfectly but you still get hit, how does that make you feel?
Yeah,
You've made no mistakes, but you still get downed.
Why even bother?
It's not necessarily a good feeling. I feel in multiplayer games, people want to feel like they have control over the outcome of the match, or at least, you know, based on their skill level, their performance should, or the results of the game should be relative to their skill level. And if the killer is in complete and utter control, then the results are going to be a lot different than proportionate to your skill. So the reactionary role being the smaller audience, you know, I feel like there'd be less people that would be interested in playing that reactionary role. So it would make sense for killers to play the reactionary role.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, it is a kind of a weird subject because of that. Like, I feel like if people did get caught all the time, even when they make no mistakes, it would lead to like, I feel like that would be a game that would suck. And plus, then everyone will also fall back on stealth play. And like stealth play itself is kind of like I don't know, like
it's short term. It's not something I want to do for 2,000 hours.
Exactly.
I think like also a stealth play is it's just so stealth play also feels it's so one sided. Like as a killer, when you just get 4 people who are like P3 Claudettes urbanly evading every move you make, and it's like, well, I guess I get to walk around the map for 5 minutes and not find anyone. And
exactly. If stealth is the optimal play, and that's what people will start making, and it's not interactive for the killer.
I like.
For the
I play games.
Whoa, look at how I crouched around this object as he walked right by, right? But for killer, it's like, okay, I haven't seen anyone in 5 minutes. Why am I playing this game?
It's like I had a game where I had that.
Walking around, it's a fucking jogging simulator.
Where I had this extreme on Swamp, just as I just said, like 4 P3 Claudettes with urban evasion just on Swamp with thickest mist. After like 4 to 5 minutes, I was just like, fuck this, and I just left the game and went on to the next game.
You didn't get banned to keep doing that?
I
Watch yourself.
I know, but it was like, God, when it was like a month ago. But it was just so boring and frustrating. I was like, fuck this. I want to play a game where I actually get to chase someone, even if they pallet loop me all the time on Wrecker's Yard. You know? At least then I get to do something.
Pallet looping doesn't have to be unenjoyable. It just is as it exists currently.
Oh yeah, it doesn't. I'm not saying, but you know.
No, yeah. I know.
I'm sorry, I'm watching Tofu stream that background.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I do love that discussion though. I love the whole discussion of like whether or not like if the killer had more control. Like I feel like that's how killers. I feel like most people that play killer in this game want that kind of control. You know, I feel like that's why they get so mad. They get pissed off whenever they don't have that much control. And I feel like if they did have that much control, though, this game would probably be terrible, honestly. Like, I think it might be terrible. I think it might turn to, like, a stealth fiasco where everyone just plays stealthy. And then as killer, you're literally just playing hide and seek for, like that would, I would quit. There's no way I would never touch killer if that was this game. I would never do it. That's what it comes back to is if you did give the killer more power in a chase and you were constantly chasing down people, it'd be satisfying. But if they did give the killer more power, you wouldn't always be chasing people.
What I think is, I don't want more power in a chase because I feel like I play decently well and I already have enough power in a chase as is, like for my taste. I wish I had more power in actually controlling generators being stopped. I think, yeah, I can apply decent pressure, but like, what am I supposed to do against something like a brand new part?
I think gen speed is a little bit of an issue. It's such a touchy subject.
It's just because
I feel like
you have no control as a killer. Like, even breaking generators, a survivor will just tap it for a millisecond and it'll stop the regression.
Breaking generators is too slow right now. It's definitely a symptom of it.
It should, I think, breaking generators should at least have something like, it should regress us by like an immediate 5 or 10%, you know?
I personally, I really like battling killers for generators on one tile. So like if he kicks it and then I run around and then repair it again and then vault the window, I love that. I think that's super interactive and fun. I think the action to kick the generator should be faster, and the regression should be faster if they don't do anything about it. So instead of like, he's kicked the generator, and if I repair it now, he can go back and kick it again.
It should be faster and faster. Like, the longer it regresses, the more it regresses. Like, if you leave it for 20 seconds, it regresses by like 2% per second.
Sure. Something that encourages survivors to come repair it and stop the regression, so they can bait survivors out with it. If the damage is already done as soon as you kick, then you're discouraging survivors from repairing that generator again.
Yeah, it's true.
That makes a lot more sense. Yeah.
And it also makes it so, like, I don't think that it should always be the right play to kick a gen. You know, like, I think if you're chasing someone near a gen, you shouldn't. Like, that's your fault for kicking it. You know, you should only be kicking a gen whenever you know that there's nobody nearby.
Maybe kick it when there are survivors nearby, or use it as like a tracking tool to see if they're nearby. There's a lot you can do with it. It's just not rewarding enough currently.
Yeah, I agree. Unless you have like overcharge, but that's like the only way.
But even then, once they know that you have overcharge, they're just gonna hit the skill check anyways.
That overcharge 3 skill check can be kind of rough, man, honestly.
Yeah, if you get like a 3 o'clock skill check, it's pretty rough.
I don't know. I know whenever I run overcharge, I mean, maybe the people I'm playing with are all boosted, but a lot of people miss it, I'm telling you. And me as survivor, I hit them like maybe like 60-40, and I don't hit them consistently. It's, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. Right. To actually get somewhere in this episode, let's quickly go over the perks. Perks aren't really that special. We got the first perk at level 30 is Strider. Breathing of survivors in pain is 25, 50, 50% louder. Regular survivor breathing is now also 0, 0, 25% louder. It's pretty... I don't know, man. This perk is... It's a cool idea, but like for someone that doesn't really pay attention to the breathing, it's pretty useless. I don't know.
This is probably one of my favorite perks, actually.
I think it's really cool, yeah, but I'm just not the kind of guy to play the game on like full volume through my 7.1 surround sound, you know, Sennheiser.
Yeah,
and like I hear fucking survivors breathing from 200 meters away.
Yeah, and with 1.5, they changed how the sound worked, so Strider is a lot more useful now more than previously. I ran it for a good bit. I don't really run it anymore, but sorry.
I mean, I think it's a great perk, don't get me wrong, but I'm kind of with Acho here. Like, I personally don't really like listen for breathing a whole lot, and like the moans of pain thing isn't really like, you know,
it's already loud enough, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's not something I have troubles with to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, I already can hear moans of pain fine. So like that seems like an unnecessary buff. I feel like it's mostly there. I mean, I have heard that it does help you. Like, for instance, if you're like a nurse and you're chasing someone through like a cornfield or something, or if you're chasing anybody through a cornfield ever, I feel like it helps a lot. Like, if you're a little bit corn blind, it probably helps you a lot. And I'm sure it helps, but I don't know. It's just something I never really found like I needed. Like, it never seemed like it was worth a slot to me, a perk slot. So you can only have 4. I do think it's a great perk though, and I do think if you're good at like, you know, sound whoring things and you know. You know, if you do, but keep in mind, I also play this game while streaming pretty much exclusively, so I'm always talking to people and not really completely focused. You know, like maybe if I was sitting in a dark room alone, completely focused, you know, maybe I'd love Strider. I have no idea.
Well, I mean, you could argue that, you know, with you streaming and everything, then it could help you more because you don't have to pay as much attention.
That's true. I could argue that, but I just feel like I don't pay enough attention to even notice it with Strider, to be honest.
No, I don't really play video games to be like super focused and be at the top of my level all the time, so something like that playstyle of just trying to listen for survivors is not really for me. I think I play DBD like more casually. I think anyone plays DBD casually, that's kind of a stupid statement, but you know, I don't really focus while playing DBD.
You'd be surprised, dude. You'd be surprised. Dead by Daylight's a nice upcoming esport, dude. You gotta take that shit super serious or else get the fuck out.
Yeah, basically.
No, good perk though. Good perk. Sorry.
Yeah. Pretty cool perk, definitely. Right, let's move on to meta perk for Regen Rush number 2. Fanatophobia. All survivors receive penalties to repair, healing, and sabotage speeds for each injured, dying, or hooked survivor. That's a lot of numbers. One injured, dying, or hooked survivor, a little bit, 2, a little bit more, 3, that's a lot, and 4, that's pretty good. What do you think? It's a pretty cool perk.
I mean, I like it. I wish it felt more significant, but at the same time, it's one of like the only consistent stalling perks, you know? Like there's stuff like Hex Ruin that people run to stall at the game, but that one's like, you know, how many times you spawn in a map and your totem's the whole way across the map and you're like, fuck, they're gonna destroy that in the first 10 seconds, and then you know, then you're left perkless, you know? Like Thanatophobia is one of the only ones that's actually consistent. Like it's there all game. You know, it helps out with things like when survivors body block hooks, you know, and you get multiple hits but not a hook. You feel like you're more rewarded for it. I mean, you already are rewarded for that. I just don't think people realize how rewarded you are for that, but it helps you get even more rewarded. And I mean, I don't know, it is pretty significant. I feel like when I'm playing Survivor and someone has like Fanat and all 4 people are injured, it's definitely a pain in the ass. You know, like I don't think it's bad, but I don't know. It's definitely like a mediocre stalling perk, but it is one of the only consistent stalling perks in the game. Probably that and Overcharge are probably the only ones. So
yeah. Any thoughts on Fanat?
I really like Fanatophobia.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of it as well. I'd personally like to see it affect like dead survivors, and I'm pretty sure that was a thing at one point. But
yeah, but I think that's kind of, I don't know.
What do you mean?
I think I don't know. It's like I definitely like seeing that too, but I'm pretty sure it can get out of hand a bit. Yeah. Like for example, when somebody disconnects right at the beginning of the game, or someone's like gets caught in the first 10 seconds by a cross map ability, and they're like, "Fuck this game! I'm gonna play League of Legends," and then they just quit, and then you're like, "Oh cool, I guess I do everything 6% slower now. Thanks." You know.
Well, someone rage quitting reason to balance the perk around it, you know.
Yeah, but on the recent dev stream, Matthew said that they want disconnects to be counted as devs. So.
Yeah, I don't really know how I feel about this. Like, it sounds cool, like, because it sucks whenever you have Thanatophobia, then you kill someone, and you're like, well, fucking, you know, there goes a stack of that Thanatophobia I can never get. But at the same time, like, that's a dead guy, you know? That's even better than having them do things slower. You're literally taking away one of their people, you know?
Yep.
So, like, I don't know. Like, as much as I feel like it might be a good idea, I also feel like you're already like rewarded enough by killing somebody by removing a whole quarter of their fucking team, you know?
I think
so. I don't know.
I think what they could do is when you die, okay, like when there's 4 survivors and 1 person's injured, it's 6%. But if someone's dead and 1 person gets injured, it starts at 9%. You know what I mean? So like for each dead survivor, if the perk actually when the perk activates, it counts as 2 people being injured, and then when there's 2 people, that it counts as 3 people being injured, you know?
The reason why I like this perk not being for dead survivors is, one, because when a survivor's dead, they're applying no more pressure, really.
Mm-hmm.
And that this perk also just encourages not being a dick, in my opinion. Like this basically encourages the whole "we're gonna live forever, take the hits, you get rewarded as a killer as well for everybody being injured," and a lot less tunneling, because you actually don't, you know, a lot less like, I'm gonna tunnel this person down because they're on last health state and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure. Which I think we need more stuff like that, to be honest.
We need more perks that just encourage not being a complete fucking fuckwad as a killer. But you know, barbecue and chill. That's a pretty good perk.
I thought you were trying to say barbecue.
I don't know, man. Some people actually argue that barbecue and chill is just quote unquote another perk for campers, and I don't understand at all.
Well, I think their argument is that if you don't see anyone within the range, then you have no reason to leave, kind of deal is like, I think the argument.
Yeah, but it's like, man, fucking killers running barbecue and chill, always camping. It's like, you know, if you hook someone and you don't see any auras, I think that's more of the survivor's fault and not the killer's fault.
Yeah, exactly. And still, the killer still has an incentive to actually hit those survivors because they get double points. As opposed to just standing there and like body blocking the hook, because I don't care if like we're everyone's surrounding the hook and the killer doesn't leave, like that's understandable, but it annoys me when they don't at least just hit you, and they instead just stand there and like body block the hook, and I'm pretty sure it keeps them from doing that. So, but we're getting sidetracked again.
We're getting sidetracked. Any closing thoughts on Fanat?
Maybe a little bump up on the percentages would be healthy. Like maybe the end thing, like if you're all injured, maybe like 20%, you know what I mean? Like
make
like
it go
the
like
difference
5% each,
right? Like something like that, because it's I think Fanat should be like a little less than Dying Light, because Dying Light is like solely focused on one person, but I want it to be like something that's actually impactful,
especially if you have all, like, it's hard to get all four survivors. Like that's
and like 2 of them are probably already self-caring already. So
well, that's where it shines. Then
you should be rewarded for that,
or increasing the time it takes to heal. It takes a lot of time off generators.
Yep. No,
At the same time, though, I think if they buffed it, I think it would make slugging nurses even more overwhelming. Like, how are you gonna beat a slugging nurse with 4 times Fanat that's has like crazy fucking slow heal time? I don't know, man. That might be a little too much.
Well, what about having like dynamic values for slugs, injured, and hooked survivors?
Oh, I like that. Maybe like,
cool. Hell, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, maybe like hooked survivors have more. And...
Yeah, hooked survivors like give like 10% each. That'd be
slugs
huge.
would have the least.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'd like that.
I mean,
it is a pretty metal looking icon though. Like that icon.
It's really a fine line, because as soon as you allow the hooked survivors to have significantly, regressed or slower, if a hooked survivor is say like minus 10% action speed, you're going to have killers camping.
No, it helps campers. God fucking damn it! Why does every cool idea help campers?
If we make camping not so bad, maybe it's not so bad, So I think that's what we need to work towards, is make camping more enjoyable. I don't know. I'm not a fan.
Make camping more enjoyable. They just bring you a
interactive gameplay.
Hey, just like making
the killer skill
more
checks during camping.
Yeah, no. they just walk up and hand you a cocktail.
No, I'm not a fan of perks that slow the game down through making the survivors work generators longer or hit more skill checks. I don't think those are good means of anything, really. I don't think it's good game design, actually. Like, I mean, if you want to make a perk that slows the game down, make a perk that forces survivors to interact with the killer in some way, or something to that extent. Don't make them do more skill checks, force them off of generators more, or I don't know. So there's my 2 cents.
That actually does bring up like a good idea. I mean, this is kind of like getting sidetracked, but in terms of like obsession,
sidetrack all you want.
All right, like the concept of an obsession. Like, I would love to see obsession perks where, like, you can gain more abilities, stuff like that. Like, maybe gain more speed, gain more points if you're the obsession and you're getting chased. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
But
yeah,
wouldn't that mean that decisive strike users would get buffs while being chased? because they're technically the obsession, and that means
they are technically obsession, but that would mean a lot of other people would want to run obsession perks, and only one person could be the obsession. So that might actually be bad for DS users if all 4 people are running obsession perks, and the one person that didn't run decisive strike actually got the obsession. Then the other person might get it.
I mean,
then you just never chase the obsession.
35% wiggled decisive meta, which thankfully the community hasn't picked up on yet. Because if you're not the obsession and you have decisive strike, that's just still really fucking strong.
Yep.
It's even strong.
Are you suggesting this is a perk though, or like just is in general? Because I think that's I think that's what we're not.
Dude, that'd be a cool idea for object of obsession. Just if you are the obsession, you just get bonuses.
Yeah, maybe something like that. Just in terms for
itself is one of the best design perks in the game, in my opinion.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's already pretty cool.
I mean, they could be improved. I guess everything can be improved, but
I mean, I'm just saying, if you didn't tie it to a perk and just made a default for obsession, then yeah, it would be basically what Flair said, where everybody would just be like, "Oh, well, pick the best perk for obsession," and everyone would pick decisive strike. Like, if you tied it to another perk, you know, then sure, then people would run that perk, and then that would make sense because then maybe the fucking DS user would get fucked over, and they wouldn't get obsession, and the guy like running the blood point perk would, you know.
I think I get what he's saying.
I'm just saying, I feel like the whole obsession thing with stuff like decisive strike, I kind of actually maybe see the opposite, whereas obsession perks for survivors should be something that's really strong, which like DS is already pretty strong, but you kind of want to do this like risk reward thing, whereas okay, I'm gonna be playing as the obsession, I'm gonna have this really cool thing, really strong, might actually save my ass at some point, but there should be some sort of downside, I think. That's just my opinion. I feel like
I would love to see it, yeah, all that.
Like, oh, you get to free yourself from the kill. Like, maybe even, you know, just shower thoughts. I don't actually saying this should be in the game. Maybe make it decisive strike. It's like, oh, you're the obsession. Like, our obsessions, if you're not the obsession, you don't get it at all. But like the obsession itself, like, the decisive strike thing recharges every like 5 minutes or something. But then you get a downside. Then you get like a huge downside where you're like, go right, maybe you
can't drop pallets.
You can't drop pellets, or maybe you bleed out really fast. You started struggle state when you're on the hook, you know, something like that.
Yeah,
that'd be really cool.
I get what Rix is saying when he's saying maybe there should be perks that give you benefits for being the obsession, but that's like based on the assumption that being the obsession is inherently bad. So for stuff like Dying Light, you know, you don't want to be the fucking obsession if you got a Dying Light killer. So he's suggesting,
I mean like not if you're the obsession overall, if you use an obsession perk as a survivor. That's what I mean. Like obsession perks for survivors should be like decisive strike, you know, recharges like maybe every 3 minutes, but you can't drop pellets, or maybe you vault windows significantly slower. You can't fast vault windows or something.
The whole concept of there being one survivor that I don't want to chase more than the other survivors, like I want to avoid this survivor. I don't like that dynamic.
Yeah,
I don't think it really creates for any fun gameplay scenarios. I mean, I like risk reward perks, but right now being the obsession as survivor is purely a positive thing. It really
That's what I don't play.
There's no inherent downside. Save the best for last. Like, that goes away when your obsession dies, right? But nobody runs that anymore. And then Dying Light, I mean, yeah, you get camped if you're the obsession, but you've got that healing speed. And if you are the obsession and you're running the good perks, like Decisive Strike, then it's still a good thing to be the obsession. Get out of that camping. I think what they wanted for the obsession and what ended up happening with it are two entirely different things.
I mean, that kind of happens a lot, though.
Yeah.
Bloodlust was supposed to fix pallet looping, by the way.
I mean, it kind of does.
It kind of does, but it also creates really fun gameplay. I'm sorry.
It destroys everything else. So, like, Bloodlust does make it so you have to drop the pallet faster, but nothing else is viable, so people are going to be looping pallets more than before, so...
So, how about that Nurse is Calling, by the way?
Ooh, yeah. We went on a really
Nurse is Calling killed Deerstalker, and I will never forgive it for that.
I love my Nurse is Calling.
For the people who don't know, Nurse is Calling unlocks potential once aura reading ability. The auras of survivors who are healing or being healed are revealed to you when they are within a 20, 24, 28 meters range. That's a pretty good perk right there. Heckin' damn, Johnny Joe. Gee whiz, Billy, how come the devs let you have such good killer perks? Well, gee, because I leveled up the nurse. I'm sorry.
You should be, honestly. You should be.
Yeah.
I like this perk. I think it's a great. I think a lot of people think it's like the greatest perk ever or something. Which I mean, I don't know. I think it is a very, very good perk for sure. But I don't know. It's kind of like Flair said. It did kill Deerstalker, which was kind of depressing. But yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty solid all-around perk, especially on someone like Nurse. And honestly, on like a lot like Huntress uses it amazingly. Like a lot of people will like self-care in the field and not think that you'll be able to see them and you can just snipe them. I think it's a like very solid, definitely like one of the better perks in the game for sure.
For me, it acts like a.
You can't tell when you're in your terror radius, right?
It's
Huntress?
20 meters, right?
It's when
I mean, you can very clearly tell when you're in the terror radius, like range of, because the terror radius, Nurse is Calling is just under that range. So if you hear the terror radius, you know. I think
it used to be over the range, right? It used to be 36, something like that.
It was. I think it was exactly the terror radius 32.
Oh yeah, and then they nerfed it, right?
Then they nerfed it. They yeah.
Not a significant nerf, but it was
acts like a chase starter rather than like a tracking perk or anything like that. Because you could pick up chases really fast just using Nurse's Calling, especially early and mid game. Late game, not so much, because usually you'll just have like one or two survivors. They're probably not self-carrying often or healing each other often. But at the same time, late game, if you catch them healing each other, it's pretty much game over for them. Because you can get both of them down. I use it on Billy and pretty much everyone else. It's really good on Billy.
Really good on Huntress too.
Huntress too, yeah. But I think Billy's like speed and map traveling potential just lets you instantly get to them before they can really get to a pallet.
If you like healing across the map, it's pretty rare that you're gonna be able to react in time before, like, when the Billy gets in your terror radius, or you get in his terror radius and you're healing.
Yeah.
Because his chainsaw splitting. He's like, whoop, whoop. And you see in the corner of his eyes.
Chainsaw and just see them when Nurse is Calling and then instantly start a chase.
Alternatively, if they're healing to your left or right, you can't turn and look at them at the end of the sprint anymore. If they're in that front coming of view, though, hey.
You can, but not do any damage to it.
Nope.
Well, I'm saying, like, at the end of the chainsaw sprint, you can't immediately look to your left or right. You have to wait a split second, and that can be enough for the Nurse's Calling to go away. They stop healing.
It still lingers for like a good second after they break the heal. So.
Also, Nurse Calling is pretty good because when you hook someone in the basement and someone gets to unhook them, it kind of tells you if they're healing in the basement or not, or if they're running up, you know? So that's
there's definitely a lot of information available.
Knowledge. That's what I value over materialistic things like my new Ferrari. Any closing thoughts? Nurse's Calling?
Overall strong perk.
Yeah, it's definitely a good choice. I mean, I kind of want to clarify when we say that Nurse's Calling killed Deerstalker. Previously, you could see when survivors were being healed off the ground. You might have noticed when healing a survivor off the ground that it looks kind of weird because you're kind of interacting with air above the survivor. Previously, someone being healed off the ground would be in a crouched state when you were healing them. So if you were watching the down survivor and they were being healed, you would see them as crouched with Deerstalker. And I believe that was removed to add more value to Nurse's Calling as a perk. On top of the increased recovery speed off the ground.
Oh, yeah. All right. let's get into the add-ons.
Do we even have to talk about her add-ons? Man,
I'm really iffy. I don't really want to talk about her add-ons because, you know,
who the fuck uses add-ons?
What can you really say about her add-ons other than that nobody uses them because they just mess up your...
We can talk about why you shouldn't use them.
Yeah.
I can quickly go...
Can we highlight like the add-ons that are actually kind of useful?
That's what I want to say, and then like quickly say, okay, there's add-ons that decrease the accuracy of your blink. There's add-ons that increase the maximum range of the blink.
Is like a lot less significant than you think, but yes.
Yep. Then there's add-ons that change the blink movement speed, which means how fast you move in the blink. Like, while you're blinking, how fast you travel forward. There's add-ons that add or remove chain blinks, which means, like, blinks you can use after you've already used your initial blink. You've got add-ons that increase or decrease the chain blink window, which is the time between blinks you can do before being stunned. There's add-ons that increase or decrease the charge speed of the blink. Yeah, there's add-ons that affect the fatigue time, which is like the time where she looks at the ground, she's all exhausted.
Alright, let's dispel some common misconceptions here. To my understanding, increasing the blink of movement speed just gets you to your target faster and doesn't actually modify like where your blink ends up. So if I'm blinking with increased movement speed, I'm just getting there faster. So those add-ons are like a straight buff to your power. So don't be afraid to use those. There's also the stopwatch.
Oh yeah, the stopwatch.
Which decreases the charge speed of the blink, but it reduces the fatigue time of the blink. So pair that with something that increases the charge speed of the blink to negate it, and you've got yourself a no-stun nurse.
Oof.
So already we've identified these add-ons are actually kind of useful. And then you've got the fragile wheeze, no downside, adds 1 additional chain blink, no brainer, 3 blink nurse. Yeah, that's pretty fucking good.
That's my favorite add-on right there, dude. I love it.
We also got
like back default nurse from back in the day.
Jesus Christ.
Probably the fucking most retarded add-on for nurse that you just don't want to see in any of your games, which is Campbell's Last Breath, which adds 2 additional chain blinks and slightly reduces the maximum range of the blink, which is a non-existent downside. I don't think that really does anything.
Alright, okay.
You just get 2 blinks.
Yeah, there's okay, and then plaid flannel. Alright, so for the rest of the add-ons that mess with your muscle memory, just throw on plaid flannel, and then you can know exactly where you're going at all times. So she actually, her add-ons get a bad rap. I won't say they're well designed, but I don't think they're nearly as bad as people think they are.
Oh no, they're pretty cool, but it's just, how could they have known that people would have? I mean, maybe they could have known, but like, I'm pretty sure they didn't actually.
That's always the answer.
What? I'm pretty sure they could have known if they just fought a little. That you know, people are gonna be like, oh man, this character's like muscle memory based, so why would I use anything that messes with my muscle memory? So, I think what would be pretty cool when they eventually get to reworking your add-ons, which is they've been promising for ages. Maybe like add something like these add-ons that Huntress or Trapper has, or Billy, where like if you hit someone after using all of your blinks, they have slower healing speed or something like that, you know?
Sounds like fun.
But it's better than what we have now, because it's at least be usable.
It
would probably be worse from the survivor's perspective.
With useless add-ons than a killer with ridiculous add-ons. I wouldn't want the nurse to have rusted chains equivalent. Would you? Would you want to play against that? I
take it back. I'm sorry. All right. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry.
We gotta dispel this right away. We gotta fucking squash it before it grows. Before people start thinking, "Hey, wow, yeah, let's add 1,000,000 debuffs to the nurse's blinks."
I'm gonna beat this out.
I think her add-ons could use a rework. I think all Kelly's add-ons could use a rework. But I think we should fix the base problem with the nurse, because her add-ons aren't the biggest problem with the nurse.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, let's get to that. What can we do about the nurse that actually won't make a ridiculous piece of broken shit?
I want to hear what Tofu has to say before that, but yeah, that's
yes, Tofu, you can. I'm sorry.
I mean, all I wanted to say was that definitely, fix the nurse before you change your add-ons, because right now, like, nobody really plays her with add-ons. Everyone usually plays her default, and she's still fucking broken as shit. Like, she's still insanely strong. If you actually gave her good add-ons on top of her already being insanely strong by default, that would be fucking nutty. It would be ridiculous. So yeah, please no. Please no. That's all I want to say.
You know what add-on we need? We need...
Infinite Blink add-on?
No, we need Iridescent Breath.
Oh my god. One shot blinks. After a chain blink with a little skill, you could one shot down.
Yes.
If you have enough skill to chain together 10 blinks, then I mean you deserve that one shot down, right?
Sure.
Dude, nurse mains deserve everything. Plate flannel, shows you where you're gonna land. It's pretty irritating to use because it actually stops in front of objects as long as you can't blink through the object. But hey. So, add-ons. Anything else about the add-ons? Did I just cut someone off? I'm sorry. Hello?
I mean, I think we're good. I don't think there's a whole lot to say about the other add-ons.
Very scared there. I thought my internet cut out again.
Okay, add-ons. I think if the easiest thing to do to help rectify her add-on situation right now was to stop with these fucking tremendous slightly. What does this mean? I don't know how much it's increasing or decreasing my blink window by. Why would I? If they were more like outright fucking honest about what the add-ons did, I think people would have less problems with it because they would be able to see, oh, okay, I can equip this to counter this, and then my muscle memory is fine, and my blink is just faster. Like I think if they could do anything to help fix our add-ons right now, just tell us what the fuck they do.
I honestly hate that everything in this game is either slightly, moderately, tremendously. Like, just give me a fucking percentage.
So visceral and gritty.
Yeah, I just give me a goddamn percentage. Like, how much does this help? How much doesn't it help?
The numbers, Mason. Give me the numbers.
Here, this whole time it turns out that Salty Lips doesn't even do shit
it does
compared to
3%. It increases 3%.
If you look at Salty Lips and look at Up the Ante, you'd think, oh, Salty Lips is
tremendously. What? That's so good. And then Makody's like, yeah, that's 3%. That's 3%. You just burn the very rare add-on for 3%.
Yeah,
Up the Ante's low-key busted.
Get pranked.
The values don't even mean the same thing. Tremendously for Salty Lips means something different for a different offering or add-on.
Tremendously and tremendously isn't always the same.
Could you imagine if that was for every single perk? You'd have self-care where it's oh, you can heal yourself without a medkit, but it's at a tremendously decreased speed. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they could, yeah.
They could keep those words in there, They could say
tremendously and then
improves, the killer's ability to blink. You can blink tremendously farther, and then it'll say in the tidbit, there'll be a bullet point, 10% longer.
Or maybe you could disable it or enable it.
It's so unnecessary. Yeah. You could have a immersive
if you hover over the word with your mouse, it shows the numbers.
Instead of values, it just says fucking moderately increases, moderately decreases.
Yeah.
We call that one Makote mode.
Jesus Christ. I mean, then again, actually no. Outfits, nurse outfits, not a lot.
Sandbag looks retarded.
You think? I think it looks
that's my opinion. I don't like it. I don't like the gas mask.
I really like the Prestige nurse because they look like those red guys, those guys completely in red from Star Wars. Do you know what's the name? The Royal Guards or something.
Probably the best looking legacy for killers, at least.
Oh yeah, her legacy looks pretty cool.
The light bulb head, dude.
Yeah.
I like the World War II nurse uniform. I think it looks pretty cool. like the bullet holes, that looks so sick.
Yeah, I honestly like I even like the gas mask thing too. I think that whole outfit was.
The soundtrack looks pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah,
it's not as bad as I made it out to be. I'm just toxic.
I honestly don't like Prestige on her at all. Like she was like, I just Prestiged her recently. She's one of the last people I Prestige. I feel like she just looks like a floating bloody tampon, and I just don't really like it. It's kind of ugly.
I think a Prestige looks sick, but that's just my opinion.
Neat, but...
Yeah, I love the legacy.
I don't have the legacy. Because I didn't give a shit back then, and now I'm like, God fucking damn it, you are an idiot. Oh well. Dude, are we like done with Nurse? Can we move on?
Well,
anyone?
I'm curious to know if anyone has any good suggestions on how to make Nurse better. Because I personally don't. Like, I hate her, and I would like to just see her removed. But if anyone has like an actual suggestion on how to like make her more like balanced or whatever, that would be nice. I don't personally have anything myself. I don't know what the fuck. Aside from like a complete rework where you just make her not teleport through walls, that's my suggestion. But I don't know what else to make her do. You know.
I think
just fixing her lunge. Fixing her lunge would probably make her a lot more tolerable to play against.
She'd still be god awful, but I mean, it's pretty fucking buggy right now, and it definitely doesn't feel good.
I'm just trying to think, like, if she only had one blink, like, it's still really powerful, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, it's still not, like, it still ignores all the basic mechanics of the game. I just feel like her ability in general, no matter what you do to it,
doesn't fit.
It's like completely opposite of the game.
I feel like one thing that would be really cool is because she already has like this spooky ghost like feeling to her. She's definitely supposed to look like a ghost, you know. One thing that I find really cool is just have her, trap her movement speed and everything, but maybe make her ability something like where she can phase through a wall. You know, that'd be kind of cool.
I guess you could make the counterplay rely in her blink movement speed. If you decreased her blink movement speed, then you would actually be able to get an idea for where she's going based on how long she was charging the blink and then avoid that area. And I mean, I guess you could still find yourself in unbearable situations, especially around the hook. Like, especially around the hook, you're going to find yourself in a shitty situation. But it would allow counterplay. It's like, but when you do that, how do you give the nurse power to actually down survivors if they can avoid your movement? It's just, it's kind of her whole negating pallets. It really kind of destroys the whole basis for killers ramping up in power over time. Like right now, I mean, if you start a match as, say, Hillbilly or Wraith, and everyone and you're on a map with a lot of pallets at the start of the game, you're effectively fucking useless. You can't catch anyone until you've broken some pallets or build up bloodlust. But that doesn't exist for her. She doesn't have that useless state and then ramps up in power. So how do you give her enough power at the beginning without making her overpowered? It's I don't know. I don't have the exact answer to that. There are definitely things that could be done, but
what if someone here said in Tofu's chat right now, just an idea, leave blink chaining the same and generate blinks over time, maybe start with a max of 4 and get another one every 30 seconds.
I've heard that idea a lot, and I kind of don't mind it. Like, say like you start with like 3 or 4 blinks in like your pocket or whatever, and then you like when you use them, it takes like 30 seconds for them to come back. So like, if you take 4 blinks to catch somebody, you're then kind of useless for like 30 seconds. So it gives you more incentive to catch people with like 1 or 2 blinks, you know.
But then maybe make it like hag movement speed, you know.
Well,
I feel like even that would still be broken, but I feel like it would at least be an improvement.
Maybe make it so she's like, Huntress or hag movement speed, but make it so the blinks aren't like a ridiculous range. Maybe make them more short ranged focus, so you can maybe blink through thin walls.
Then
again, pellets would be useless against. She'd still.
I don't know how you would do it, man. I don't know how you would do it. I think
just
there is
blinking,
an answer out
she'd
there.
just not be in the game. I think there's no way around it.
She is fundamentally busted. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, exactly.
Blinking has no place.
How do you fix something that is fundamentally broken? If you could somehow tie pallets into her power so that she wasn't that good early on, but ramped up in power over time, and she could force pallet drops, then I mean that's a step in. That's kind of what people. I think people misuse step in the right direction, but I think that would be an actual step in the right direction because then you're starting to put her into this area of okay, she can't do much. Right off the bat, so survivors can outplay her early on, but over time she ramps up in strength. Now, regarding the blink recharge time, it would still feel like gas to be that first survivor that gets down and there's nothing you can do. So would it help balance her? Yes. Would it make her enjoyable to play against? I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see where you're coming from there. I mean, I think as far as like raw balance, it's good. Yeah, but she would still be shit to play against. So who knows, you know? And that might even be worse because then by default she could have 4 blinks, which is just insane. I just still think so someone in my chat said it, and I think it's a pretty good point. I mean, this game is based around chases, you know? I feel like most people play this game like for the chases. Like pretty much that's where the core of this game is in the chases, and she fucking teleports. Like the fuck, dude. How can you have a killer that teleports in a game that's about chasing, you know? Like it just completely takes away all of it.
Hey, they were trying to work around that, you know, they were trying to add limitations to the teleports. You know, you got to set them up beforehand and then try to play around them. But she has accurate on-demand teleports, whatever the fuck you want. Just fucking wall, no problem. Just fucking, you know, fucking smack someone. It's so dumb, man.
That was a good nurse impression, I'm not gonna lie. But it's like, dude, it's like playing a game where you have nothing but like swords and shit, and then giving someone a fucking like
M16. He's got the minigun, dude, and he's sitting on top of the hill.
Hell yeah.
There's only one way up the hill, by the way.
And he has infinite ammo. And he's Russian, so he doesn't give a shit.
This man graduated the top of his class in Navy SEALs.
No, he has 300 confirmed kills.
You've got a pencil, my friend.
Jesus Christ. Alright. Fucking nurse. That was pretty good. Or was it?
I think there was definitely a lot of things we didn't get to touch up on. But I mean, there's a lot to fucking talk about with this killer. So once again, email feedback.
Give us some feedback. We might do a part 2.
Speaking of email feedback, are we moving into this now?
Our next segment is a perk reworks. No, let's just go into the emails.
Okay.
Right, first email we got. It's not really a question.
Who's it from?
It's from Karen McSherry, and what she has done is, let me just read the email. Hey guys, I love your podcast. I love Dead by Daylight. I love it so much that I went over Benedict's journal and re-rolled the whole thing. Because I love the ride and I didn't think the developer's version was good enough for such an awesome game.
Really dedicated.
I've attached my edited.pdf to this email and I've included a link to the same work I published on Steam. Take a look if you get some time. Shameless self-promotion hype. I'm also writing...
Don't you think?
Hell yeah, we can. I'm also writing prose piece based on the Hillbillies backstory. I hope you enjoy my work and thank you again for the incredible podcast. Kieran McSherry. I've actually read the first 2 or 3 chapters. It's actually... if we can give some criticism, sometimes the wording feels a little awkward, but it's actually really cool. For someone to rewrite the whole thing, it's not just a bunch of paragraphs. It's actually quite a lot. So I'm gonna put that in the description. You can read that shit if you like reading. Who actually reads in 2017 when you can play Candy Crush? Dude,
I agree with you, Karen. I think some of the lore,
questionable.
Some of the Dead by Daylight lore reads like 6th grade creepypasta.
Yeah,
pretty much.
It's pretty questionable, man.
Some lore is
I think
pretty
it was the
fucking
rape
weird.
lore just some of the word choice was so goofy, like ripping the dude's spine out of the thing, like fucking.
It's like, oh man, he's like a peaceful dude, but then he reveals he's been murdering people, so he just fucking rips the guy's spine out.
Guess I better start ripping spines.
I'm pretty pacifistic, you know, but sometimes you just gotta rip a dude's spine out.
If the situation calls for it, you know. Desperate times call for desperate measures.
Sometimes you just gotta start ripping spines.
I look forward to reading that. Sounds pretty damn cool.
It's pretty cool, yeah, man. I like lore. I like lore in games. Lore's always cool. So yeah, thank you for the email, Karen McSherry. Be sure to send us a link when you finish that hillbilly thing you're doing. We got one email from a good German, by the way. He's German, everybody. Fettes Nilpferd. In Tofu said he's German. He's not Austrian. Don't believe him. He's German.
Where's the email?
It's an email.
G'day, mate.
Oh.
G'day, Mike.
Okay, good job.
He's my German pal, Fettes Nilpferd. Hey, what do you guys think about adding an extra perks for passive killers perks like Ruin, Thrill of the Hunt, Thanatophobia, etc.? I personally think it wouldn't be too strong. I know that most of the perks are passive, so maybe just adding one normal perk slot for killers would be interesting to hear your opinions about that. Thank you, my German friend, Fettes Nilpferd.
Alright. So he's asking if we should. How do we feel about more passive perks being added into the game? Hey.
No, he's asking if killers should have 5 perk slots because a lot of killer perks are passive.
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Yeah, I agree. I think with how strong like survivor perks are, and considering there's 4 of them with like 4 times 4, you know, like there's 16. Like playing against 16 perks that all have the power of like sprint burst and decisive strike and borrowed time and shit. Like those are very strong perks, you know what I mean? Like they're game changing. It's not like a minor buff; it's like a game changing buff, you know. And playing against 16 of those is kind of crazy, you know. And I definitely wouldn't mind the killer getting, you know, some extra. I mean, they definitely got to be careful. I don't want the killer to have like fucking 8 perks or anything because that'd be a little bit nutty. But you know, like having like 5 at least.
Mm-hmm. I think most builds, the staple of most builds, is 2 perks. So maybe you're running
Distressing and Unnerving Presence.
Exactly. Or maybe you're running Hex Ruin and Thrill of the Hunt to defend your Ruin. Or maybe you're running Thrill of the Hunt and you're running
or maybe you're just a complete nutcase and you run only Hex perks.
But I was gonna say Devour Hope and Thrill of the Hunt. So most perks are based on 2 perks. The most common, you know, Brutal Strength and Enduring. And I think adding a 3rd perk outside of the base 2 perks adds for a lot of build flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the passive aggression perks. I think I mentioned this before, but I'm not against 5 perk slots.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm all for it too. To be honest, I think it'd be nice because especially this killer, man. It's rough sometimes. Like especially with I'm glad I did the whole like brutal strength change because now you can kind of get away without running it. But before that change, man, it sucked because you only had 4 slots and like 2 of them were like basically must have perks, and it fucking sucked. Like you couldn't really like. I wanted to try, like, I would always want to try some things, but I was like, all right, well, if I try this, I have to take away Brutal Strength and Enduring, and then I'm going to do shitty because, you know, I need those.
Like, making builds for killers was like, all right, let's make a cool killer perk, but first we gotta do the essentials. Brutal Strength, Enduring, let's just add Whispers in there for good measure, and then I got 1 perk slot. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So it'd be nice to, like, run the essential stuff that you need just to deal with good survivors, then also have, you know, some slots to run some shit that isn't, you know, that is like fun to play around with, you know.
Yeah. Give us 5 perks, behavior.
Can we also get an option to revert our perks on the bottom right? There's like a kind of a perk wheel or a perk diamond now. I kind of like the perk line, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I like the perk line more, especially because when I don't. I mean,
Pink perks
like
also.
It's a nit. It's kind of a
Don't get
nitpicky
Tofu
thing,
started.
but I really dislike how the
Definitely
perks are like randomized every time, the order of the perks.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't like that.
Definitely, yeah.
Shouldn't be a thing.
If I need to like look at some of the perk icons to get the most use out of them, let me order them, please.
Yes, please. Maybe even like, you know, crazy ideas, but you know, maybe give us like an option in the options menu where you get like a screenshot and you can put the perk icons, like perk 1, perk 2, you can put one in the top left corner, one in the top right corner. And then you can like customize it how you want. Wouldn't that be cool?
That's really fucking advanced, dude.
Yeah, you're talking.
Give us a few years here.
My brain.
We still don't even have like a solid.
Humanity isn't that far yet. You know, we got self-driving cars, but like putting perks where you want them. Nah, man, that's.
It's respectful.
We need a new Back to the Future movie to see that kind of shit. Anyways, yeah, give us thank you, Fettes Newt Fed, my German pal.
Yeah, my man.
Say German one more time.
What?
Nothing. Move on.
All right.
So, what's the email that everyone was? I feel like I'm still missing out on a good email here. Are we getting to it?
Save the best for last.
All right. Save it for last. You're right.
Chris Keller. Hey guys. Wanna hear you talk about the current situation that killers have a longer queue time. Do you think patch 1.7 just fucked over the survivors? In quotations, BT nerf, item drop, we're gonna live forever nerf. Or is it just because of... What? Because of if. It just says if. Greetings, Chris Keller. Just straight up, we're like not part of the dev team or anything. We don't know what's actually going on over there, but my suspicion is just something messed up. I don't think there's less killers.
There was a bug discovered recently, something to the effects of kill your friends lobbies affecting matchmaking.
I saw
that.
Wait, what?
I don't know too much about that, and I don't know how much of an effect it has, but it's
personally, I don't have a lot of issues. I live in Germany. So,
are survivor matchmaking times the problem here? Is that what it is?
No, killer. I think some killers in some regions killers have awful matchmaking. That's why I'm saying it, because I personally don't have. I haven't noticed anything, and I live in Germany. But then like I think Tofu had this recently on stream where he sat in a lobby for like 2 minutes and not even one person showed up, and he lives in Canada, so I think it's definitely something region and time based.
Yeah, definitely. Rank 1.
Oh, someone's saying in chat that they got put in a KYF lobby while queuing for normal games.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Uh-oh.
So with how many people would be opening Kill Your Friends lobbies or just sitting in them? I mean, maybe not a lot of people, but if it affects matchmaking, that means that... This on in combination with the fact that survivors did get nerfed. Survivors window vaults, that's a pretty fucking huge nerf with Bloodlust.
No, survivor nerves. Get the pitchforks. Sorry.
No, you're right. I mean, survivors are still overpowered, but it definitely my opinion. Survivors are still overpowered, but I don't think it made the game more enjoyable for them either. I think until we see Bloodlust and Window Blocker removed, that change is purely just going to make the game worse for survivors. Anyways, survivors got nerfed. New killer released, and he got some really fucking cool perks for killers to mess around with in builds, like actually viable perks that you would want to run over, say, Nurse's Calling or Deerstalker or whatever. So I think it's a compound issue of people not wanting to play Survivor, people wanting to play Killer, and then just really bad matchmaking all around.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that like the borrowed time nerf was even significant, to be honest.
It did nothing. It did nothing.
It's actually kind of funny because for some reason I see survivors running it a lot less, but they still play like they have the perk. So they do shit where like Anuk right in front of me, they just both get down, like, what?
If you took off borrowed time, fucking spoiler alert, throw that shit back on, nothing changed.
Yeah, it's still as good as
still a good
perk.
Was. Still a pretty ridiculous perk, but you know, it's kind of necessary with how many fuckboy killers we got.
Excuse me.
Dude, it's like, come on, I'm like trying to play Survivor and get like killers who fucking face camped me because I ran around the same pallet twice. I'm like, what the fuck? Is you okay? Is your feeling hurt? Like, some killers.
Don't blame the player, man. Blame the game.
I guess.
If it works, they're gonna do it. If it helps them win,
if it's
they
stupid
enjoy
and
it,
it
they're
works,
gonna
it's
do
not
it.
stupid.
If it's not enjoyable for you, then that's a gosh darn shame. You're playing this game.
Basically. But yeah. Alright. Got another email from Sensing Animal 16. Wow. We got 3 questions. Hi, I've been really enjoying the podcast that you guys have put together. It's interesting seeing what people that have had a lot of experience with this game. Think about what the devs have been doing to it lately. Oh, that's some harsh wording. The devs are doing something to the game. I just have had some questions and want your opinions on what you guys think about them. Number 1 is basically the same question about giving killers another perk slot. We already answered this.
Hell yeah.
Number 2, what if Nowhere was changed into a format like Devour Hope, that the totem spawns when 3 to 4 gens are done and you get a small speed boost, and when all gens are done, then you get 1 shutdowns. This is basically a Nowhere buff, so I'm just gonna straight up say no. But I think changing Nowhere into something like, maybe make it not a totem, remove the one-shot mechanic, but make it like for each generator that's complete, let the kill move slightly faster. That'd be kind of a cool idea, but Like, I got this idea because I've heard of this, like, with like 3 to 4 gens, the killer gets slightly faster, and then they get the one-shot. I think the one-shot should just be removed.
Okay, so what about the last question? What was the last question? Let's get through all the questions and then we can answer.
Oh hell yeah. Last question. What about if a killer is camping a survivor on the hook progression doesn't go down or goes down 5 times slower, just to make killers know that camping won't get them anywhere? Pretty good questions, actually, I think.
My opinion on movement speed buffs, just in general, is that they need to be really, really, really minor, or they just shouldn't exist at all, because it does mess with a lot of aspects of the game. Especially, as you can clearly see, Bloodlust 2 is... how much of a buff is that, percent-wise?
It's 1.2 meters per second with each stack, so it's 2.4 meters.
It doesn't, like, no, I don't know. It is pretty big. I don't know.
2.4 meters per second is pretty huge, yeah.
No, it has this whole thing where it's just not enjoyable to play against, because maybe you made no mistakes the entire game, but near the end, the killer decides to focus on you, and all the pallets have been dropped, so there's room for error, and then you make a single small mistake, and you could potentially just die right then and there, just because you got tapped at one time. So it's, I don't know. I personally like the no-ed timer. 2 minutes? Maybe that was a little too long. Maybe 1:30 or something. I like the no-ed timer because with how camping worked previously, where you could actually, trade states with the hooked person, if someone took a hit, then you could kind of play around it. It was risky, but it was interactive. A lot of people got points out of it. I thought it was kind of neat. I don't like the totem thing, because then it's just you're looking around the map for the totem. If you don't find it, oh well, your friend is dead. So
maybe make it like it's like the first 2 or 3 hits after the gens are open are one shots, and then it's not anymore.
Yeah, something.
But even include swings or like hitting the wall, so you can actually maybe try to make the killer miss or swing into a pallet, and then they just use the stacks. With like play for food, you have like 3 stacks, and every time you swing, no matter if you hiss or mid, you lose a stack.
Yeah, see, there's kind of a neat idea. Maybe instead of making it like a hex or whatever in the way that it is right now, maybe you get 1 swing per totem left on the map. I don't know. Limiting it in some way so that the survivor doesn't have to fucking hide and seek with totems, or just giving a way to play around it. Make it limited, then I think that's better.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see it removed from the game entirely. I think the whole like one shot downing towards the end of the game is just a shitty designed kind of perk. I think those kinds of perks need to stop existing. Things like no-ed and like decisive strike and things where like right whenever you like do well on one side, you then get punished just because of perk. You know what I mean? Like that's just I don't like that. It's like I would rather the perks be there to help you not get into that situation, as opposed to a perk that's like, oh well, you know, once you get into the scenario where you're just about to lose, here's a bunch of fucking power. Or, you know, as a survivor, like you're just about to like open the exit gates and leave. It's like just kidding. Here's one shot downs. Get fucked. You know, I don't think that's a good design for perks in this game. You know, I would love to see all of those type of perks like just taken out, to be perfectly honest.
I feel like
yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying, yeah, I agree. I'm not.
I feel like this game would be a lot more enjoyable today if they just had like a few set rules they set themselves that they should never break when designing a perk or a killer. Which is, I personally think those rules should have been maybe just 1 or 2 rules. If it didn't involve the power, like, you know, Michael Myers or like the Hillbilly Chainsaw, hitting a survivor with a normal swing should never instantly down them. And god damn it, I forgot the last one. There was one more, but I think this one is enough. I just think if it didn't involve your power, like the Hillbilly Chainsaw or the Myers Stalk, the Evil Fan Free, just like perks, something that shouldn't be able to one-shot down you.
I just feel like the first thing they should consider with perk design is it fun?
More or less.
Exactly. I think when it really comes down to it, this game is not a competitive it's a for fun game. Like that seems to be like a pretty like not clear thing, I feel like. But this game is not a fucking competitive game, you know. I feel like everything that goes into this game, that should be the first thought of like, is this going to be fun to play with, against, you know, and then go from there. Like if the answer to that is no, then fucking scrap the idea immediately, you know.
So
it blows my mind that we're even thinking that maybe they don't consider that, you know. It's spooky. Instead of asking like, does this have, you know, options to play around or whatever? I don't know, man. I don't know.
I also find it really spooky when you like watch the dev stream and then McCody says shit like, because McCody is the man in charge. He's like the head producer, right?
He's a game director.
Director, that's right.
So he's like the man in charge, right? Say. Yeah, and he like keeps saying stuff like, but I want the game to be like frustrating and gritty, and you shouldn't be like.
What the?
It's like when you hear him say stuff like, you're like, dude, no, come on.
Yeah. He says shit like, we want to create an emotional response from the people playing the game, and it's so hypocritical of him to say that, because he kind of quit playing the game because it was too frustrating for him at one point.
Yeah, your emotional response.
I don't think that's fair to subject like players to that just because you think it's cool.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, that's a stupid idea. Like, no one wants to play a game to be frustrated. Like, no one wants to do that. People play games to have fun, you know? If you're trying to base your video game around people getting frustrated, your game's gonna fucking die. Like, the fuck are you thinking? That's not a good design for a video game.
That's what I like surprises me, because he keeps saying stuff like, oh, he wants the game to be frustrating. And yes, the game, this is like in some scenarios, one of the most frustrating games I've played at some point. But like, then again, it's also kind of fun. Like, why am I still here? It's like something out there keeps me going, keeps me playing.
Stockholm Syndrome.
Oh, Stockholm Syndrome completely. That's what it is, dude.
No, but there's. I feel like I kind of went off the road here. What I wanted to say is, Mikota keeps saying stuff like this, but then somewhere in the production of new content, he has to like realize that what. This is dumb and something needs to be different, you know? Or else we would have, like, way more frustrating shit that's not fun to play against.
Well, I mean, it's still happening. Like, look at Knockout.
Yeah, but...
Knockout, like, I don't know what they were thinking with that perk, to be perfectly honest. Like, that...
But I don't think that perk... Like, my opinion is I don't think they designed that perk with the idea of it being a frustrating thing. Just like, oh man, what if we had a perk that removes people being able to see the horror of those survivors? Like, hell yeah, that sounds like a cool idea. And then, like, it got released, and then the people who actually play the game were like, dude, that's super unfun to play. And maybe they were like, god damn it really is unfun to play. What did we do? You know?
See, but that's what blows my mind is how do they not know already? Like, you could have shown me that idea for a perk before it ever existed.
Yeah, like there's no communication.
Yeah, like I don't know. I don't understand why they have to release it first, get feedback, and then know. Like, it's depressing, honestly. Like, I feel like they should know already that that's a terrible design. It sucks that like they don't. Like, they release stuff like that and then get feedback afterwards. Where like I feel like they should know enough to know that that's going to be. Yeah, but I feel like that's what I'm saying. Like that's what sucks. They need to know enough about their game to know that kind of stuff is going to be not liked by the community. You know.
We already got like a bunch of really experienced players talking to developers, but that doesn't guarantee that what these players tell the developers is actually gonna go through.
Yeah, and well, I mean, and like still, like they're still making up new perks and stuff on their own. Like it's not like it's us making the new perks. Like they're just hitting us up for feedback. But like us giving them feedback doesn't really make them completely understand. You know how things work, and that's what I'm saying. Like they need to get a fundamental understanding of like what people like, why people play their game, what people enjoy about it, what people don't enjoy about it. That way they can make mechanics and perks and things that revolve around people actually having fun and having a good time, as opposed to just frustrating everybody.
I feel like what happens the most is like they get the feedback, they understand that it's like we didn't like what they do, but they don't understand why we didn't like it, and then they what are they supposed to do then? So, we got like awesome people like McLean who actually like listens to us. He plays the game. I think he's pretty good at it. He's not bad.
Yeah, no,
but like then
great.
still,
I love McLean.
he's not the game director. He doesn't have the final say. At least he like managed. I hope that it was McLean who managed to make them change the values of Franklin's demise from like 25% to 10%.
He's not the only dev that like there are a lot of like
we got
devs who like know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But
he's like the prime example because he's been doing it from day one. Pretty sure.
Yeah, it's just I don't know what it is. It's just like somewhere along the lines, like something gets like lost in translation, and the perks always end up being like terrible. I don't know. I'm still sticking to basically what Gapple said, where I wish that with everything that they released in this game, I wish the first thing they would consider is, well, is this going to be fun? Like, are people going to enjoy this, or is this just going to be something that frustrates everybody, And if the answer is that it's going to frustrate everybody, then don't.
It's also this, they would actually need... Okay, like, when they release new content, it's also kind of understandable that they don't want to, like, make a PTR for it, because then the whole surprise gets taken away. And then people already know what's coming. But I feel like that's the thing, I don't understand why they're scared of this, because they keep... Like, Leatherface was kind of dropped out of nowhere. Like, they wanted it to be a surprise thing. But if they would have done stuff like... I'm gonna compare it to maybe League of Legends, which is a way bigger game, but when they release new champions, like new characters in the game with their abilities, the characters are always like on this test server for 2 to 3 weeks before they actually get released. So they give... And not everyone gets to play on the test server, it's like chosen people. And then people actually get an idea, and then usually the champions turn out pretty well when they get released. So,
yeah, but I also think, I mean, okay, don't get me wrong, I've never been a part of a game dev team, so this is all just...
Yeah, me neither. It's just, don't take it with a grain of salt.
I feel like considering the fact that they have like a small dev team, that might make that kind of harder, Like, I feel like even if you put in like a public testing for a couple weeks and you get feedback, it might take longer than a couple weeks to change whatever feedback you get, considering the dev team is small. Like, League has like probably one of the biggest dev teams out there, so like of course they can get things changed quickly,
Yeah, it's not even a comparison, like, in size. It's like, but it's an entire company at this point.
Yeah, but again, like I said, that's just speculation. I have no idea how hard things are. For all I know, it could be easy as fuck. I don't do coding, or I don't do anything at all involving game development. I never have, so like my opinion is kind of irrelevant. I'm just speculating on why maybe they don't do it, that might be why.
I mean, yeah, it's also this game kind of lives off hype for DLC release, you know. And then when they add that to the PTR, that kind of kills that. Oh no. Well, we can move on to the next email. We got. Oh, we're actually at the spicy email, the one everybody's waiting for. So, everybody ready?
Yeah, dude.
Ready.
Full on spiciness. All right. This is not the Bitch About Bloodlust podcast, is it? I really want to know when you're gonna have someone on who likes Bloodlust in the podcast. Like me, I think it's great. It makes me actually catch those self-care sprint burst prostitutes in the game. And hey, if you don't like looping, you can just go check the generators instead. Find the weakest on their team and make the good players try to save them. Usually works for me. Every time it's discussed on the podcast, it just never goes anywhere. It's not the point of the podcast to complain about Bloodlust, in my opinion. We can see a lot of wrong things.
I mean, I'd be down to like discuss with somebody who likes Bloodlust or whatever, but
let's get him on the show then.
The way he says that kind of makes me think that, you know, his attitude towards this game is a little bit. He called them self-caring, sprint-bursting prostitutes. So, like, I don't really know how I feel about his opinion to the game. He kind of sounds like he might just be someone who's like one of those like face camping killers who uses. I mean, I'm not trying to judge, but I'm just saying like that's a weird way to put that, you know.
So like, yeah, I mean, just from the initial indication of like what I'm hearing, right, is with Bloodlust, the concept is the killers are getting mad that the survivors essentially get to do something that's so mindless, like looping, but then they don't understand why people get upset with Bloodlust for being, you know, essentially mindless as a built-in characteristic to the game. So instead of relying on a killer to be able to catch someone out of skill, it's just inherently built into the game as an eventuality. So when people say, I like Bloodlust, I really don't hear any other reason why besides it's because I eventually get to catch someone. And that shouldn't be the case, in my opinion. I think that if a survivor can out-juke you the entire game, then you don't deserve to catch them. But yeah.
Sorry, go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, the only caveat to that is infinites, but infinites are an entirely different esse that should be tackled in an entirely different way. They shouldn't exist in the first place. That's bad map design. So to compensate for that bad map design, a mechanic was put in called Bloodlust, which tackles two unfun scenarios, which is infinites and long pallet looping chases. But pallets are one of the main defenses of the survivors. So if you don't like dealing with pallets, in my opinion, you shouldn't play killer.
That's exactly my point. Like, okay, I do agree that, okay, like, don't worry, like, I do sympathize with killers. Like, sometimes you get maps where, you know, like, you'll get, like, Blood Lodge, and there'll be, like, legitimately, like, 8 or 10 double super safe pallet setups, you know, and you're just like, what the fuck do I do? Like, they're, like, super safe pallet, like pallet loops where they can just loop you forever, and you just get fucked, you know, and it sucks when that happens, and it does happen sometimes, but it's very rarely, and even that is like a flaw in like map design. But aside from that, pallet loops really aren't that much of an issue whenever you like actually get used to them, you know, like when you know how to like counterplay them and like get used to like the counterplay of them, it's really not even that bad to deal with, except for like those rare occasions that you get those terrible maps, you know. And yeah, I don't know, I feel like if you are the kind of person who just like wants to just get free catches without having to like earn, because like I feel like that's really what it comes down to, is people just feel like they should just catch survivors without them having to earn it. Like the whole point is that the survivors have these tools, pallets, that's literally all they have. They don't have weapons, they can't do shit, all they have is pallets, you know what I mean? That's all they can use to like fucking not die. And like it seems like people want to just get handed a free kill and not have to earn it through like outsmarting them at pallets and good pallet play, you know. And it's just weird to me. Like why? Like you should just instead get better at dealing with pallets, you know what I mean? And then you won't need Bloodlust. And like that's the problem with Bloodlust is it then like stunts the community or stunts the growth of killers because people start relying on Bloodlust as opposed to like getting good with pallet play, you know? Because you can get better with pallet play. That's honestly where the Dead by Daylight killer community at the moment I feel like is suffering the most. When I play Survivor, I see so many killers that just play pallets terribly. Like they just do it terribly. And then I end up looping them for like all 5 gens. They eventually catch me with Bloodlust and then they face cam me because then I'm a dirty, filthy pallet looper or whatever the fuck, you know?
That's the Bloodlust learning curve.
Yeah, because
there is none. They don't have to learn to outplay pallets because they hit you before they learn to outplay pallets, or they just don't hit you at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's it. Just gives them free hits without actually having to like outplay or anything, and it's just not a good. I mean, I would love that. Like, if someone wants to come on the show and give like an actual like calm and like argument for Bloodlust, then like sure, I'm more than willing to hear it, but. I mean, it's just it takes away from it takes away from the chase. Like I feel like most of the people that play this game for the chase. Like it's fun as a killer to try to outsmart somebody. It's fun as a survivor to try to like mind game someone and outsmart them and keep the chase going for a long time. And that just completely takes away from it. Like when I'm a killer and I'm playing against a really good survivor and they actually do kite me for a long time, like they mind game me and then I get handed Bloodlust, I just feel terrible. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I catch them with like massive speed. And I'm like, I didn't even deserve this, Like that guy played amazingly, and then it just handed me a bunch of speed. And it's like, here you go. Fuck how good he played. Now you have a free down on him,
But like playing the game for the chase, I don't know what you've been living, man. But killers gotta play the game to pimp, my brother. We gotta pimp.
It's all about the pimp. I don't know. I just feel like maybe killers are playing this game. I feel like it comes back to the thing we said before where like people feel like the killer should be in more control or something, and they don't like that a good survivor can like kite them for a long time. Like, and I feel like if that's, I mean, in my opinion, I feel like if that's the way you feel, you shouldn't play this game. But at the same time, I'm sure other people probably feel differently. I'm sure even the devs might feel differently about that because like they seem to like to push this game into like a hide and seek type game mode a lot of the time.
Yeah,
so
that's
I really
what I'm scared about.
Well,
I just feel like the control killers should have isn't about catching survivors, but stopping gen regression. I don't know.
It's for me. It's like I understand why giving killers more control. I don't want to give killers more control because killers with absolute control, like the nurse, are just awful to play against. I don't enjoy that kind of a game experience. I think people are upset about not being able to catch survivors because not only do they feel powerless and that they don't have any, tactics to help tackle pallet looping aside from stare at the survivor. So, like, if this guy is running around this pallet and he hasn't dropped it yet, if it's like most of the pallets in the game, there's a chance there's fucking nothing I can do but force him to drop it. I have no chance of hitting him before that pallet drops. There's no way for him to slip up or make mistakes because it's so damn easy. And then after the pallet's been dropped, there really isn't much I can do there either, unless it's one of the unsafe pallets where I can kind of play around it. But instead of learning the mind game, I just fucking bloodlust it up and he takes a hit. So I think killers would be less frustrated with being run around by survivors if they could have a respect for how well that survivor was playing. So currently there's no respect between
literally my entire issue with bloodlooping. It's just that
it's so fucking easy to do, and it wastes
like,
so much time.
I don't feel like I've just been outplayed or that others. I can't
you're
go,
not.
wow.
That's the thing.
I can't go like, wow, man, I just got a fucking mind game there. Like
currently, Dead by Daylight is
experiencing
the outplay drought. There's no outplay in the game anymore. Because it's asymmetrical and making the possibility for outplays requires really fucking fine tuning, and currently it doesn't exist. So for me to not be caught and be rewarded with an escape as a survivor to pallet loop is not necessarily me playing better or knowing the game better than the killer who's chasing me. So there's no outplay there. The killer camping by standing in front of the hook requires 0 fucking IQ. Like, you can walk away from your keyboard and the guy on that hook dies as long as you're standing in front of the hook. That is not an outplay. The survivor might know everything about faking unhooks. They might know everything about the resources available to them after they make the unhook. They might understand the one-to-one trading. They might be communicating with their team. But this man that's AFK in front of the hook is doing better than you, and he's being rewarded for it.
He's just the better player.
So there is...
Dude. Yeah,
there is no outplay right now. People argue that the current... If the current way to counter Bloodlust is to break chases and to not be seen, and that's the outplay. But it's really not an outplay, because quick and quiet vaulting into a locker and then hoping the killer loses you it doesn't require any mechanical skill or any amount of real thought. There's no real thought involved, you know? Like, there could be, but Bloodlust kind of prevents that. You know, previously what you could do is you could you could understand the killer and how they play, and then you could misdirect them. So you could get them into the pattern of, you know, watching. If maybe they don't know how to outplay this window tile, and you just keep vaulting the window. And then if there's scratch marks everywhere, maybe instead of vaulting the window on like the 3rd rotation, you could hide somewhere. But that kind of thing is removed, because by the time you've, you know, built a pattern and then you're ready to break the pattern and hide somewhere, the killer's already so fucking fast you don't get a chance to break line of sight, especially with the new vaulting speed. So it's really sad the state that the game is in right now. Just there's the lack of outplay, there's the unrewarding gameplay for being I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Sorry,
I was gonna say I completely agree. Like, I know it sounds kind of contradicting what I said earlier about, like, you know, like not earning kills or whatever and wanting the game to be more fun, but then also saying about pal loops, because I feel like that is an issue. Like they definitely need to like address the pal loops and make it like, okay. In my opinion, I think the way this game should be is there should be way less safe pallets, you know. And like the whole face gaming thing is an entire another thing. I mean, obviously, but you have a point. It's all that stuff. It's all that stuff. There needs to be more room for outplaying each other, you know, because as it is right now, you're right. It's stale. Like when you're in a chase, it doesn't matter if you're the world's greatest fucking killer. If you're playing against a survivor who knows remotely what they're doing on a map that has a bunch of save pallets, you're gonna take forever to catch them. It doesn't matter who you are, or what you're doing, as long as you're playing someone that isn't like, you know, Nurse or Huntress. Obviously, like if you're playing like Trapper or like Billy, or, you know, like anyone who actually like deals with that stuff, then yeah, like you're gonna take forever to catch them, like regardless.
Even worse when they run a perk to escape. Oof. Perks that guarantee escape, like Decisive Strike or Borrowed Time, like you're not outplaying the killer. You're not doing anything that's requires significantly more thought than him. You would be on the ground if you didn't have this perk. You've already failed, but the perk lets you get away. Stuff like that is so infuriating to me.
Yeah, exactly. It takes away from the whole, like, you know, outplaying each other. Like, you don't have to outplay. You just you get down and then you just have a perk to just bail you out. Like, I would love to see this game more revolved around like I'm sure you guys know like those type of palettes that are like semi-safe, but at the same time, like if you play them correctly, you could outplay people. Okay, like here's an example. I hope you guys like know what I'm talking about. Say on like the double pallet setups on like Macmillan, where like one of the pallets is super safe and then the other has like
yes.
Yeah, that exact T pallet. Yeah, it's not safe, but the mind game is in the survivor's favor every step of the way.
Yeah, and like it leaves a lot of room for both sides to outplay each other. You know, like if the survivor plays it right, he can outplay them. If the killer plays it right, he can it leaves a lot of room for like mind games and outplaying. Whereas like, you know, the other pallet setups where there's just the gigantic L with no fucking, you know, and there's like literally like miles you have to go around to get to the pallet. Like that leaves no room for counterplay. You know, it's literally just you just chase them until you force them to drop it and then move on. You know what I mean? Like that. Like that's what makes it boring. Is there's no, it's brainless. Like there's no way to like. The counterplay to it as a killer is just to force them to drop it as quickly as you can, break it, and move on, because there really is no other counterplay, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, and I think honestly, personally, I think it would be okay if some of those did exist on a map. I don't think every map should have no safe pallets. Like I think some maps should have safe pallets. but there shouldn't be like 10, 12 on one map. That's crazy. Like when one survivor...
Safe, I mean, I have no problem with safe pallets. I think safe pallets, forcing the killer to kick them, can be a good thing because that allows survivors to break line of sight and make distance and whatever else. But I don't like pallets that are safe before, like really, really safe before you drop them. Yeah. So there can be pallets that are safe to run around, but not safe to, run around before they're dropped. So like if I drop it and then vault it, I'll always come back to this. The lane pallet with like the one tree on one side and then the big fat fucking object of just whatever on the other side. So like the one side's really short, the other side's really big. You have to drop that right away, and then you can loop it once it's dropped. But once it's dropped, the killer can kick it. So, use that time to move on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's safe after the drop and not before. So it forces you to drop early, aka no pallet looping. You can't pallet loop on that pallet. That shit like that. I mean, I'm okay if there's a whole bunch of those in the game. But just the ridiculously safe pallets that take forever to force to drop, that needs to stop.
And
Exactly. I agree.
It's also this maybe it goes kind of back on the whole, like, this game has no real mechanical skill requirements, pretty casual. There was this clip I sent earlier, like this week, that actually spawned a pretty big discussion on the Discord server, where this one streamer was like sitting there in the lobby, was like, "Oh man, Survivor is so easy. You learn the maps and then you just run from pallet to pallet." And there's like, he was being like, "I could write a bot that could do that better than rank 1 survivors can. That's how easy it is, And it's like, god damn it, I forgot what point I wanted to make.
This I can identify with that. Like, there is definitely, like, in any game, there is the play. You know what I mean? In any circumstance, there's the play. And when it comes down to, like, can you mind game that play? Like, whatever the meta, like, I should take the window here, right? But he's expecting me to take the window, so I'm not going to, and that actually increases a huge amount of time, right? Like a shack window jump.
Yes.
Like, exactly. The best survivors are the people that when I do a red light fake on the doorway and I'm expecting them to jump the window and they don't, then I lose. My prediction costs, my gamble, my prediction to get them cost me a bunch of time.
That's like, you gotta also respect how far you have to think ahead for something like that to work out.
Right.
Like in those few seconds you have before the killer gets to you, how far these players think ahead and then make the decision, and then it works out.
Right. So
that's
I saw someone mention something in Tofu's chat that said, "I thought they were of the opinion of this being a casual game. Bloodlust is exactly that, a casual friendly mechanic." So first of all, like yeah, I guess this game is like casual, I guess. I don't know. Like, every time that I play this game, I give it my best. Like, I never try to think of like, I'm just gonna, chill out and just let everybody do what they want. Like, I want to give people like my best game, So I don't know. I don't know if that's considered try hard or whatever, but it's like, I just think that an inherent, like a mechanic that inherently affects any chase I go into and basically takes away, like, basically how I built my chase and how I think about chasing and what I do during chases to try and get a survivor. All those predictions, all those choices that I make, all my predictions thinking like, okay, this is an entirely different person. This person plays like this, is all being taken away from me because of one mechanic. Because all I have to do is come barreling down after you, and there's nothing you can do to stop me with Bloodlust. What's the point of perks? What's the point of anything? What's the point of thinking?
Exactly. It's not about it being casual or competitive. Like, because the game's casual doesn't mean you should have everything handed to you. No one would want to play a game like that. Even when I casually play games, I still want to,
hit the nail right on the head.
I still want to interact and like do things. You know what I mean? Like, if everything's just handed to you, then you might as well just fucking go take a nap. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point?
This is like, I know exactly what you mean, because sometimes just for example, when I like play a game or something, you could just like winning is fun, but like playing against bots or something, like just playing a shooter game against bots and putting them on like the easiest difficulty, like that's just so everything's like handed to you, and it's just not fun. You know?
Right.
Here's what I'll say. First off, I don't necessarily think Dead by Daylight is a super casual game. I think it's competitive. I think any game where you're putting players against other players is a competitive game just by default. Not necessarily. Dead by Daylight is not necessarily an esport, but there's definitely competition. Like just
definitely
the nature of player versus player alone. You're competing against someone else. As far as casual versus competitive, I think the mechanics of the game and what kind of play they cater to can make a big difference in whether or not the game appeals more to a casual or competitive audience. For example, mentioned many times, I think during this podcast, Dead by Daylight has no real mechanical skill or very little mechanical skill required to understand the game and how it's played. So instead of feeling the need to, constantly precisely move your mouse around, you can just kind of WASD around the map and do well. So it can be played casually in the sense that you don't have to be super mechanically invested. You don't have to use perfect fucking back posture. You can just chill on the couch with the controller and fucking run some circles around some killers or hit people. I think that's my argument to the casual versus competitive. It's definitely got some casual elements to it, but
It's not a game where you have to constantly be, if you actually want to win, you, for example, like going back again, maybe games like, Counter-Strike or League of Legends, where if you're playing at a high level, you have to constantly be aware, you need to constantly be checking things, And then like Dead by Daylight, it's like, as a killer, a survivor, you don't really have to,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I guess we should have been more touchy on our definition of competitive, because like, I mean, it is right. Like any game that's like you're playing against other people, of course you're going to play better than those other people, so you're going to like try to like outplay them and stuff. But like what I usually mean when I say this game isn't competitive is more like, like there's no there's a rank system in this game, but the rank system means nothing. Like you have no incentive to like play your very best every single game, like for instance in a game like League of Legends, it's like an esport. Like if you like, maybe someday if you get good enough, you literally make a living doing it and shit. You can't do that kind of shit on this game. Like you literally get to rank 1 and then you get nothing. Like it is a competitive game in the sense that you want to play better than the people that you're playing against, but at the same time, like there's no actual like reward for doing it. So like I don't know. That's more what I mean.
What I was going to say about competitiveness is I don't think this game could be considered like an actual hardcore competitive game, because one, it relies too much on RNG.
There's one map generation, yes.
Yeah, whatever map you get.
League of Legends is the same map every time.
Yeah.
Like Counter-Strike, the map, it's always the same.
How your tiles are set up.
A really good point where they were talking about other games, competitive. So I said any game that's PvP is competitive by nature. And I'm not saying, top level competitive. I'm not saying you need to be super skilled for it. I'm just saying you're competing. Someone brought up something like Mario Kart. Now,
Wait, who said Mario Kart? What motherfucker said Mario Kart?
I think the big difference here is that Mario Kart has like that skill gap. So at a certain point, while it is a very casual game and there's a lot of casual mechanics in it, your play does matter. So if I'm fucking drifting corners and shit, and I'm rocking out in first place, and this other guy sucks at the game, but he rolls blue shells, he's still not going to beat me. Maybe there's definitely like a handicap. Is it? I forget. Maybe that's not quite the term. But there's definitely a way to bridge the gap between skills, so that a player that's moderately worse than me, not a whole lot worse, but if he's not quite as good as me, he can win if he gets good item rolls. So there's definitely the casual RNG element to it, but skill matters, and Dead by Daylight, that's not so much the case. where your skill matters as much. So I don't know. That's kind of just what I wanted to address. It is a casual game. But you are competing. So it's saying that Bloodlust is okay to exist because it caters to casual gameplay I can't get down with that.
Yeah, that's exactly what you said. Like games like Mario Kart, even like games like, I don't know, another Valve game like Team Fortress 2. It's like, yeah, you can play the game casually and stuff, but you can also be really good. But there's still like casual elements like random crits, you know. For anyone that doesn't know, random crit just basically means you deal triple the amount of damage and it's completely random. So, you know, you could be like maybe the best player in the game and then just a guy runs around and shoots a rocket at you and it's a crit and you just take 500 damage and die. And you couldn't have done anything.
I mean, some RNG, some games are competitive, do have a little bit of RNG. Like, for instance, when it comes to crits, you could say the same thing about like League. You know what I mean? Like,
you got League, crits there too, yeah.
Yeah, like you can run a build that's all about crits,
but they're
and
not
have your crit chance be like
critty,
50.
like as in TF2, I think.
Yeah, and even still though, like that's very minor. This game, like as a core, like okay, like the difference between playing on like a bad version of Coal Tower against like a good version of like Azeroth's Resting Place or something is like monumentally different. It's a completely different video game, honestly, and that's what makes it like it's so inconsistent, you know.
Or like,
and I feel
even as example for like maps like Lariz, I had a game recently where the tiles spawned perfectly to form 2 straight up infinites back to back.
Yeah.
I couldn't catch that one mag because she like kind of got props because she immediately realized that holy shit, there's like 2 infinites right there. It's like shit like that.
I've had that happen. Yeah, I've had legit 4 back to back. I was chasing AFK strats the one day, and yeah, I was chasing him through, and there was like 4 like true infinites back to back to back. He eventually just ran away because he realized he was like, holy shit, and he just ran away. Thank God. Like thank God it was a guy I know who wasn't going to abuse it. But like, you know, like stuff like that, and then you compare that to like I've seen some Coal Tower maps where there's just literally nothing. Like it's just like a barren wasteland. Like there's just nothing. The map's tiny. There's like 10 pallets on the whole map sometimes, and you're just like, what can you do with this, you know?
But then again, if you take, let's just say you take that away, Coal Tower was always the same. Ironworks was always like the exact same layout every time. There'll just eventually be this meta where you know, survivors will always run this way first because there would be a predetermined path that you could take that would be the optimal path to take around the map to like stay in a chase as long as possible. You know?
Yeah, see, and like that's why I think this game is so cool, because it's not like that, you know, because that's how competitive games are. Like most competitive games, they're like there's like an exact meta of how people play. I mean, go look at any competitive game, and that's how it always is. Like there's like a meta of how it's played, and it's basically whoever can like, you know, like actually just do it better. Like whoever can do it better than the other person is basically who wins. But there is like an exact meta to how it's done, and I think that's the glory of this game, is that like, you know, it's random. Like every game is played differently, and you know. I don't know. I think if they tried to make it competitive, that would just be terrible. I think that would take away from what makes this game fun.
Mm-hmm. We went... That is a really deep rabbit hole. We just went down.
That's what we do.
That is the whole point of this podcast. This is what just happened is literally why I wanted to do this. I think this is when people listen to podcasts. But yeah.
It was a good one.
It's a good one. You know, we could, unless anyone else has something they want to touch on, I think we can end this on pretty good 2-hour mark.
Yeah, I'm good. I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, if there's any more, I'm really curious if any, like, as far as like plugging the email and all that shit, like I'm assuming you're gonna do it anyway. But if anybody has any like arguments like for Bloodlust, like if there is arguments out there for Bloodlust that we're just not like acknowledging, or whatever, like by all means, like let us know. Like I'm down to have a conversation about it. You know what I mean? Like as long as you're not being hostile about it, don't be like.
I mean, if someone's gonna join, they're just being hostile.
Yeah, let's get him on the podcast. The dude that sent the email.
Yeah, but the thing is that if he comes in here and starts like, dude, maybe
I'm just gonna kick him from
we'll do a segment, and then if it gets rowdy, just boot him out. You know?
Yeah, I'm always a little bit thrown whenever someone says shit like those self-caring sprint burst prostitutes. Like I'm just like, come on, man. Like relax, you know, like that throws me off a little and makes me feel like maybe it won't be a calm discussion. But you know, if we get somebody who can like discuss it calmly or whatever, who was like for bloodlust, and I'm more than willing, like that. That sounds fine to me. I would love to get all like the points for bloodlust. That way we could like refute it, you know?
I think the biggest misconception between people that like bloodlust and then us that don't like bloodlust, I think when we say we hate bloodlust, we don't think that if bloodlust was removed, the game would be perfect and everything's fixed and it's wonderful. No. The game has a lot of work. If you remove bloodlust, I want to see killers buffed in a lot of ways. I don't want to see killers fucking completely useless. I want to see definitely a balance there.
Yeah, we've said multiple times here that in the current state of the game, bloodlust is sort of necessary because of how unbalanced it is right now. Like we're like we've said multiple times that we want the game to be rebalanced, to be better, so that bloodlust isn't needed and then bloodlust removed. I think we're all in agreement that bloodlust is a bad mechanic, but at the same time, the game is in a state right now where bloodlust is almost needed because of how bad everything else is. You know.
That's.
Yep.
That's why I wanted to do a small closing point on the whole.
The
initial question of like, oh, this is a casual game, bloodlust is a mechanic catered towards casual players. It's like the difference is just that. A, bloodlust is kind of needed. A game like TF2 with the random crits, they don't need that. A lot of people actually want it removed. And then B, is bloodlust isn't something random that just happens out of nowhere. Bloodlust is when the killer decides, I'm going to be a scumbag and just bloodlust you up and there's nothing you can do about it. You know? That's why I think bloodlust is kind of dumb.
Yeah, we can talk about it more another time. I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of our thought. I feel like people might be like thinking that we just want it taken out and then nothing else done, and we just think killers in the current state should be able to do fine without bloodlust. Totally because we definitely don't think that. You know what I mean? Before anyone jumps on that.
This is, as you said in the email, this isn't the bitch about bloodlust podcast. This is the discussing why bloodlust doesn't necessarily have to be a thing podcast, you know?
Yeah, they're like, if we get rid of, you know, the annoying palette loops and everything that made bloodlust be demanded in the first place, you know, then we wouldn't need it and the game would be a million times better in the long run. I think that's what we want here. We don't want survivors to be able to palette loop killers forever with no bloodlust. We want all that shit to be fixed entirely and then bloodlust removed, you know? That way you don't need bloodlust to do well as a killer.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Alright. That was... If we don't have any more closing thoughts...
I'm good.
We had a pretty good 2-hour mark here.
Email us more. Email us more things.
Give us emails. We love them.
We love emails. They're really good. I love them. I love it when my phone lights up and there's an email. I'm like, oh yes.
I want to have entire sections where we just cover emails. It'll be great.
Yep.
Dude, yeah, that's
if we get enough emails, we can just bust out fucking midweek podcasts or I don't know, something to the effect of just do podcasts where we talk about emails and stuff.
If we get like a ton of them.
Yeah, dude.
Dude, I feel the day where I have to filter them out.
Well, make sure to plug it. I'm sure it'll be like in the info section below.
It'll be in the description of the video, but for anyone that doesn't know how to open descriptions, it's daylightcastpodcast@gmail.com. That's
Bam.
it's daylightcastpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, this has been episode number
5?
Someone help me. I'm a killer man. I can't count higher than 3. 5. It's been 5. Because the last episode has been episode 4, Chainsaw Chums. This is the episode where we talk about Billy and Leatherface. Go check that out. Hell yeah. More plugging. I'm also gonna put that Benedict Baker journal rewrite in the description for anyone that wants to take a quick peek.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So
Cool.
See you next time.
Bye.
See ya.
Ooh.
Peace.